All right, let's continue the conversation on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. We have standing by here former FBI undercover operative Eric O'Neill. Eric, we've been getting questions in from the audience. Let's start here. By the way, anybody who wants to send those questions in, the QR code is how you can do it. Let's start off with this first question from Danny. He says, they keep saying they don't think this is a professional. Then why has it been so hard to find them or Miss Guthrie? Wouldn't they have been more sloppy? What do you say, Eric?
I think there's a number of reasons. Everybody was saying that this looks very professional until the video from the Nest camera came out. And I think a lot of people saw the individual come up to the camera and try to hide it with some foliage that he pulled out of the yard, going back and forth. Many think that if that was a professional, they would have done a better chance of casing the house. But I'm going to agree with you. Whether they're professional or not, they did a very good job of evading law enforcement for 13 days now, including all of the might and investigative power of the FBI. They didn't leave a lot of evidence behind. Now, we've just learned that there might be some DNA that was recovered from the house. There's not a lot new on that or that we've learned. Maybe that gives us a match, but I'm going to agree that they've at least acted professionally if they're not.
So do you have to be in a database in order for unidentified DNA to be matched with somebody? Do they have to be in the system somehow, some way?
Yes. So if they run that DNA and it doesn't come up for a match, that means that that person is not in the system, which would mean that they've never had the occasion to donate DNA by being arrested or otherwise. Now, they can use it to match against other things. They found a lot of gloves lying around. I'm not sure if people just discard gloves around that area, but assuming one of them belongs to the perpetrator that's in that video, it's possible that there could be a match. And there are also plenty of other things that the FBI and local law enforcement is going to run down that they are not going to tell the public. So I am certain there is other information, other leads, and other clues. Some of it may have come from some of the amazing tips that apparently they're receiving from the population that they're running down and could bring them a little closer to the finish line.
Let's ask you a question that I bounced off of Jamie a moment ago. Marco asks this, and I think it's an interesting one. Has IT forensics been able to trace the origins of the emails being sent to TMZ? TMZ has been receiving emails from somebody who claims to know who has Nancy Guthrie. They also ask, why is TMZ being emailed rather than the sheriffs or the FBI? You know, from an FBI perspective, though, Eric, how can investigators track something like an email? Is something like that trackable?
It certainly is. Email can be tracked. It's not easy if the criminals used countermeasures to try to hide their identity using the anonymity of the dark web, for example. But there is a way to track an email. It just requires different opportunities. Each time you send an email, that email has metadata. It has had to get from you to its delivery through different servers. And what the FBI can do, even if you use a VPN or different cloaking techniques, is continue to track back through the servers. The problem here is that there are very few communications, only a handful. And whoever is sending these emails has been very careful not to overly communicate, because each opportunity of communication gives the FBI a chance to continue to track back to the origin. Here, I am not certain that these are legitimate ransom notes. I'm starting to feel like they might either be a smokescreen sent by the individuals who abducted Nancy Guthrie in order to divert time and effort by law enforcement, or they could be a scam by an opportunist that is trying to cash in on a tragedy. If it is a kidnapping, then typically what the kidnappers would do is try to get paid by communicating, by negotiating. And if they are sophisticated, there are ways to do that through dark web message boards and the Tor network and other very technical ways to hide your identity that they could have deployed.
And to Marco's point, he asks, why is TMZ being emailed rather than the police? Would something like that be indicative of somebody who perhaps would fall into the category of this might not exactly be adding up?
Yeah, it's a good question. And that's why I am starting to think that this is a smokescreen. It gets broad attention. And once you get to TMZ, I'll just say it, has put out way too much information. I wish that they would be a little more circumspect in what they're talking about and what they release without first contacting law enforcement. But that's what happens when this information gets out like that. And it gets out broad, it causes everybody to talk about it and immediately identify this as a kidnapping. If I were the criminal and it was an abduction or something more sinister, and I wanted to divert law enforcement's attention, I would try to posit it as a kidnapping.
Yeah. So we did get a new statement in from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. I'll read this. Looks like we've got some new people joining. Let's just reset here. This is their latest investigation update that they sent out, and they just sent this out this evening. They say, good morning or good afternoon, media partners. The Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI continue to work jointly on this case. Our strong partnership is critical. We remain fully committed to this collaborative investigation to ensure consistency and streamlined testing. Evidence requiring forensic analysis is being sent to the same out-of-state lab that has been utilized since the beginning of this case. This decision was discussed with and agreed upon by local FBI leadership. Several gloves have been located during the investigation. The closest gloves were found approximately 2 miles from the home. Reports that a glove was found inside the residence or on the property are inaccurate. All collected evidence has been submitted for laboratory analysis. DNA, other than Nancy Guthrie's and those in close contact to her, has been collected from the property. Investigators are working to identify who it belongs to. We are not disclosing where that DNA was located. What is the significance of unidentified DNA being found in or around the scene?
It's potentially the second biggest break in the case after being able to recover the video from the destroyed Nest camera from Google and Nest's cloud. And so if that DNA does come back, as we discussed earlier, with a match, then that can be incredibly useful. But it can also be used because it's in the home and they don't know the origin to test against persons of interest when they have tips and establish a link between someone that they have other information might be their suspect and entry or presence in that home.
So I'm getting a good question here. Heath sending this in. Again, talking about the lab piece of this. You just heard in the statement from the authorities that they're sending the evidence that they're collecting to a lab, and it's the same lab that they've been working with. Last night, there was a little bit of reported tension, and it's sad to say because the focus of this investigation is obviously finding Nancy Guthrie, but some of the reports that came out last night were alluding to the FBI not exactly, or at least federal agents, not exactly being happy with the fact that some evidence might have been sent to a private lab instead of to the FBI. Heath asks, what are the differences between two labs like this? Do you get different results from something like an FBI lab versus a private lab, Eric?
No, I mean, all things being equal, the FBI lab, their forensic laboratory, is probably the best in brand across the world. That's what the FBI does, top tier. I don't know the local lab, how excellent it is, but I am sure that there are DNA experts there that know exactly what they're doing. Sometimes the difference can be time. You can get a more rapid test through the FBI lab, but not being able to compare apples to oranges between the two labs, it's kind of hard to form an opinion there. All things being equal, it would be faster and probably better to send to the FBI lab, but I was not part of this decision making. And I understand the grumbling that always happens with these sort of cases. What's critical is that the FBI and local law enforcement work together in tandem, because I've been saying for the last number of days, for the last 13 days, this is a mad sprint. While investigations often take time, you don't have time when someone's been abducted, because every day, every minute really matters. And so there's no time for shoving and pushing. And, the FBI and the sheriff's office have to work together because they need all that manpower to run down the thousands of leads that they have.
You know, I was reading and a lot of people online and a few news outlets, including Fox, have said that there was some movement from a SWAT truck, a mobile command center to be specific. Is it worth tracking every little movement from every SWAT vehicle that might be in the area, or could something like that actually be fairly significant?
Well, look, if SWAT is moving, then it means that they typically have someone they're interested in. You don't send SWAT unless you are concerned that the individual could be armed and dangerous. But tracking every movement of every police vehicle can be incredibly frustrating. It's very typical that investigators don't tip their hand to the public or anyone else. This case has an abundance of information that's been presented to the public. Another commentator had a great idea that one reason for this might be because in a world of social media, so much information gets out there, and providing more information than you otherwise would can help prevent a lot of conspiracy theories from occurring, especially as the days tick by. But at the end of the day, the investigators are very careful to only provide information that they absolutely need to. And I think a lot of the information that we have seen is purposed in order to get the help from the public. You release that video because you want someone who might recognize that person. And it's amazing what you can recognize. You might say, "Oh, that's a guy dressed head to toe in a mask with gloves." But if you know him, you might say, "Wow, I recognize the way that person moves, the way he swung his arm, that look in his eyes. I know who that is." And that has worked in other cases, including most recently the Brown shooter case and the Charlie Kirk shooter case.
So let's get to a question from Paul. Paul has an interesting one. Are satellite images able to be investigated of that residence at or around the time of abduction? Is that type of technology feasible?
Yeah, that is a good question. And because we think that the FBI and law enforcement can do a lot of things that unfortunately they can't, and they certainly couldn't do when I was running around undercover. And one of those things is receive satellite image on demand. In order for those satellite images to be available, and a satellite would have to be tasked, it would have to have a camera that can scan the area, and that is something that takes time. So no, the satellites aren't going over and constantly just watching everything, and that we can pull the footage later. I wish. When I was working undercover in surveillance, if I could have pulled a satellite image on demand and tracked my target that way, it would have made my job a lot easier. But good question. It's sometimes important to dispel the myths and prove the reality of what law enforcement can and can't do.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody who's sending in these questions. If somebody has a question, there's a likelihood a lot of people have the same question, by the way. Laru in Wildwood asking this. Why didn't they pay the ransom and then track down who got the money? In order to answer this question, you got to know a little bit about how Bitcoin works, correct, Eric?
Certainly. So Bitcoin is cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrency is not anonymous. That is another one of those misconceptions. People think that if it's cryptocurrency, then the minute that you send the keys from your wallet to another wallet for that cryptocurrency, then it's gone. The fact of the matter is that all cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin is a kind of cryptocurrency, exist on a public ledger called the blockchain. So let me use a quick analogy. Imagine a massive bank with infinite lockboxes, and each of those lockboxes has cryptocurrency. And the key to that lockbox that prove that you own that cryptocurrency that everyone can see, because everyone in the world, in the public, can see what cryptocurrency is and what lockbox, is sitting in your own personal wallet. And when you move cryptocurrency from one lockbox to another, you give that key over to the new owner. Now, we can't see who owns the wallets. We can see where the cryptocurrency goes. So if the family had put $6 million in that cryptocurrency wallet in Bitcoin, if they have transferred their keys, presumably to the kidnappers, the FBI would have been able to follow the cryptocurrency keys as they moved wallet to wallet. And the game there is to catch the final movement of that cryptocurrency where it gets to a wallet that is tied to a regulated bank and turned into cash, because at some point they want to spend it. Those wallets usually have to have an identity tied to them, and it becomes a very big game on the dark web to chase the transactions faster than the criminals can move them. So why didn't the family put $6 million in? because whoever owns that cryptocurrency wallet and was sending those ransom notes to TMZ and radio stations and TV stations that are local was not providing a proof of life or any information, apparently, that would lead the family to believe that they actually had Nancy Guthrie. If they believed they had Nancy Guthrie, I suspect that they would have put the $6 million in, but you run the risk of completely losing that money and not getting anywhere in the case. So I think this was a little bit of a game of chicken to see who blinks first. We went past 2 days deadlines where they said that if you don't pay, the worst thing in the world would happen, and it's been crickets since then. So I suspect that these aren't legitimate ransom notes.
I got one more for you, Eric. This one has to do with the FBI. I believe Matt has this one ready for us. Let's pull it up. This one coming in from Oz in Indiana. Why has the FBI not gotten a federal court order taking over the case and evidence from local authorities? What would it take for them to even consider something like that?
Yeah, it would. Right now, it would have to be some sort of cross-jurisdictional requirement and a legal requirement that would allow them to come in and take over. And look, the FBI wants to work hand in hand with the locals. Right now, it is a local case. Typically, in these sort of very high-profile cases, the local law enforcement will ask the FBI to come in, which I understand happened, and then will turn the case over to the FBI and work under the direction of the FBI on their own recognizance. They make that decision to do that because they have the local jurisdiction for the case. Then the FBI takes over because they are the experts of these sort of cases: kidnapping, ransom, abduction. Here, that hasn't happened. My understanding is that there's grumbling on both sides, but at the end of the day, the two agencies are working together. But no, the FBI can't just swoop in and take over the case. I know that happens a lot in movies and TV. They would need a court order to do it. There could be some federal pressure, but they would have to file that case, win that case, and there's no time for that. Right now, the important thing for every investigator is finding Nancy Guthrie.
Eric O'Neill is a former FBI undercover operative. Thanks for the time tonight.